Okay, GBA, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines will remain off. Go for it.
All right, thank you, Matt, and welcome and happy Valentine's Day, everybody, and welcome to the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for February 14th on 2023. We have a work session this evening. Before we proceed on the work session, I'm going to make a motion. We're going to go into executive session to talk about a legal matter. And so I will make a motion to enter into executive session.
Second.
Concur.
I'll concur.
Thank you. Go downstairs.
And we are back. Go ahead, please.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Want to make an announcement on while we were in executive session, the board discussed the decision last week on Shaggy Shack LLC. And the board as a whole feels that it did not have adequate evidence, and it desires to reopen the hearing, to have a continual hearing on the Shaggy Shack LLC, so that we can see evidence that might be important to us. With that, make a motion, if you will, to schedule a continuing hearing for Shaggy Shack LLC at 774 Montauk Highway, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-49-4-5.
Second.
Concur, but do we have to open something again, or?
No, we're just making a motion to have
To
a
have a hearing?
hearing scheduled.
New hearing.
All parties will be notified, right, council?
That, yes, we'll notify the party.
And there will be a reposting
I concur.
necessary.
I concur.
Thank you. All right, with that, we're going to go to our administrative applications this evening. Our first one is Robert McKinley at 239 Fairview Avenue in Montauk, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-19-7-40.8. And the description is to construct a 200 square foot swimming pool, 455 square foot of patio, pool equipment, and pool fencing within 150 feet of freshwater wetlands. Tyler?
Sure. So this property is on Fairview Avenue. This is Peters Run to the northwest. The applications within jurisdiction, they're 100 feet to the edge of the closest structure from Peters Run. There are wetlands across the street. One's out of jurisdiction. One's like 130 feet away, and obviously across the street. So what they're proposing is a small swimming pool, 10 feet by 20 feet. A small amount of patio and pool equipment, as well as a fence. They are going to be doing a small amount of revegetation over by the wetland side in order to bring the property under the maximum allowable clearing. And other than that, we're pretty comfortable. It's a fairly minor project. On the opposite side of the house, runoff shouldn't be really a significant issue on this project.
But Peters Run is on the pool side, you said?
That would be over here on the west side.
Oh, on that side, okay.
And that revegetated area is the area that's got the additional hashing to the right?
Yes. So this, I don't know if you can see that, this area like right here.
Uh-huh.
It's 234 square feet. Right now they're at 12,363, where 12,209 is allowed. So they'll be at 12,200 once the re-veg is done.
Any questions for Tyler?
No, I don't.
No.
Everybody okay with it?
Mhm.
I'm okay
Okay.
with it.
Thank you. Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll do it. And then in the case of Robert McKinley, 239 Fairview Avenue, Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-019-07-40.8. I'd like to make a motion to allow this application to be processed administratively.
I'll second that.
I concur.
I concur as well. Thank you. Next, we have Sanjay Pingle at 136 Benson Drive in Montauk, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-32-6-4.1, and that is to construct 250 square foot of terrace with pergola, outdoor kitchen, remove deck stairs, and add decking over existing improvements, make interior renovations, upgrade the existing sanitary system, and revegetate approximately 4,100 square feet of vegetation on a parcel of land containing freshwater wetlands. Tyler?
Sure. So this property is way at the far east end of Benson. Was in front of the board somewhat recently for, I think, the swimming pool and the shed as well in the back. Large lot, large scenic easement or conservation easement, sort of the same thing. So most of the property is encumbered with wetlands. It's also encumbered with that easement. Significant wetlands on the property as well. What they're in for now is this a deck extension here, a patio with a trellis on top of it, fairly minor improvements. They're doing some interior renovations, which is sort of out of the board's purview. They're also making some minor changes to this existing decking, removing a set of stairs and just making it only accessible through the interior of the residence. They're upgrading the sanitary system in pretty much the best location they have on the property. And they're also doing a fairly significant amount of revegetation. A lot of it's up here, but then some of it along the edge of the property near wetlands or as a buffer to wetlands. Along with the sanitary upgrade and the revegetation, we were fine with the application moving forward as administrative if the board is involved.
Is the driveway going to remain where it is now?
Yeah, there's no proposed changes to the driveway.
I thought in the previous hearing we had on that, they were going to move the driveway to the other road where the
Yeah, I
easement
think
is.
Mike
And that
handled
seems
that
to
one.
be-
I remember there was something about it, but I don't think anything, I'd have to go
They
through
haven't
the.
done it, but I thought they're going to, and it seems to be where they're putting that sanitary, roughly.
Yeah, I mean, they'd have to get Suffolk County approval to put it under a driveway, if that were the case. But I seem to remember that not being moving forward with it or something along those lines.
Well, it had
Um,
stalled, but I thought part of the last decision was because that driveway was going to move. Anybody else remember?
Yes, I remember that being part of the last application,
Vaguely remember that. Again, it wasn't my application, so I forget the specifics of the driveway part of it.
but the drawing we have now, the survey we have now indicates that the driveway is going to stay essentially where it is.
Correct.
Well, that's where it is today.
Right. It's just gonna, yeah, they're not proposing, at least on this survey, they're not proposing any changes to that.
So what happens to that other time when they said they were, or they had a permit or something already?
Yeah, I mean, they don't have to act on that permit. If they don't want to. So ultimately they would need Suffolk County approval for the driveway to go over the sanitary system if they wanted to do that. But as it is right now, they're not proposing any changes to the driveway in this application at the very least.
So is this, I guess back Terry up a little bit, is the survey that we're looking at, is that the same survey that was approved before?
Well, it's obviously been updated for the new proposals.
Well,
And
from
it
what I
includes everything that
remember-
was constructed as part of that last one.
From what I remember, the driveway for that time was going to remain there, but there was something already in the works that I think, may have factored into our decision the last time that was going to move that driveway. over
Coming in
to
from
the-
Montauk Highway,
Yeah,
down the flagship.
right.
Right. Yeah, I vaguely remember it. I could certainly do some.
But if it
research
wasn't
on
part of the decision, would we have made a
Well,
decision
well,
based on something possible in the future?
Well, I thought it was already something they were going to do. It was not even-
I don't know.
I know, I
don't know if Joan was there either.
I don't think it was that definite.
I
They were
agree
gonna
with
do it.
Tyler's assessment, though. If
I
their
don't
driveway
remember.
is there, they have to get a traffic bearing septic system.
Either way, the drawing we're looking at now, the survey we're looking at now indicates the driveway is going to stay essentially where it is. What we'd be approving
Well,
at
that's
this
where it
point.
is today.
Where it is
Doesn't mean it's
today.
going to stay
Yeah.
there. And I thought it was the town that wanted them to go over the
No,
Montauk Highway where they're supposed to come
I don't
across.
remember it that way. I don't think it was, I don't remember it being the town wanted them to do it, no.
Well, I'll opine, if you will. I think the mitigating factors here outweigh what they're asking for.
Mhm,
But
Maybe.
Well, I'll agree, I'm going to agree with the chair. I think that adding 1,400 feet of revegetation and
septic
And then
system.
the septic system, and then what they're doing here is not moving anything closer to the wetlands and not doing anything that almost doesn't pre-exist. They're working on the deck. And they have that small area, they're going to add a pergola. I have no problem with this. I think the question of the driveway was raised, but other than that, I have no problem with it.
I'm agnostic on the driveway because I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember if you
I
were here
don't
with
think
us
I was
then.
just on.
A couple of years ago. Yeah.
No, that was before you returned, Jeff.
Anybody else?
You gone back to
Don't know if it's
the-
significant. Kind of looks deep in thought looking for it.
Denise?
I don't have prior knowledge of what went on, but
So are
based
you
on
okay
what's,
with,
right.
you're okay with what's based there?
Mhm.
Oh, there's something.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it was included in the determination at least. Fencing, shed, outdoor shower to remain on a parcel of land with freshwater wetlands.
Yeah, it was something,
It might have been talked
On-
about and wasn't in
something
the
that
determination. It's not in the
it wasn't in this
determination.
determination, but there was something else pending. Okay.
Might have been in the body of the decision. No. History
No, I
of
don't think it
it.
was directly related. I think it was
Oh, okay.
something else that was already pending for some
Mhm.
reason. That's what I'd like to know.
But I would say even so,
Yeah.
if you have a driveway that's going someplace that's over a septic system, there's a way to handle it, right?
It'll have an additional review. It'll have an additional review by the least health department.
Yeah.
I'm ready to move forward with it.
Okay, so.
Which
move
wouldn't be in
forward.
our purview, right?
No.
Right.
So we have a motion?
You want me to do this one again? I'll do another one. Then in the application of Sanjay Pingle, 136 Benson Drive, Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-032-06-4.1, I'd like to make a motion to allow this application to proceed administratively.
Second. Concur.
Concur.
I concur as well. Thank you. Next, we have Catherine Enesario Perinas Haas Jr. at 33 Springy Banks Road in East Hampton, Suffolk, tax map number 300-119-2-8, and that is to construct a 600 square foot affordable accessory apartment addition to the existing residence with an approximately 150 square foot porch, approximately 42 square foot of deck, 60 4 square feet of hot tub, new shed relocation, and an upgraded sanitary system on a parcel of land within jurisdiction of freshwater wetlands.
Okay, so this is your 100-foot or 100-foot setback line. They're proposing an affordable accessory apartment attached to the existing residence. They have adequate square footage on the lot to do it without needing any variances for that. So it's just an addition to the house for the purposes of an affordable accessory apartment. So 600 square foot gross floor area, which is the maximum allowable. They're upgrading the sanitary system to meet 150-foot setbacks. They're relocating a shed in order to obviously to install the sanitary system, and then they're proposing a hot tub that meets 100-foot setbacks. Given that it's an affordable accessory apartment and the impacts are minimal, we were comfortable bringing it to the board.
Can I ask, this is a devil's advocate question, if you will.
Sure.
Do we know it's an accessory apartment? I mean, and will be used as an accessory apartment? I mean, do accessory apartments usually get hot tubs?
I think that's just that happens to be part of the project. I wouldn't say it's really associated
Well,
with, I don't think the two are really associated with each other
Is
necessarily.
the apartment on one side and the hot tub on the other?
The hot tub would be down here. The apartment's up here. I mean, they're
Yeah.
close to each other, but I wouldn't necessarily attribute one with the other. But the affordable accessory apartment would have a kitchen area, and that in and of itself would necessitate them getting the ability to do that through the building department. So that by itself would sort of kick them over into needing to identify it as an affordable accessory apartment. Can't have multiple kitchens, obviously.
No, I get that. I'm just saying, okay.
I mean, even if it was just an addition onto the house, it's on the most landward side of the house. I think it still meets the criteria for an administrative review. It's a small addition on the landward side of a house. I don't think we would handle it differently if it was just an addition rather than affordable accessory apartment.
Okay, that may be, but then how does it get to be, where's the affordable part then?
This originally came in as an addition to the garage, as a second story addition to the garage, and that would definitely had to have been an affordable accessory apartment in order for that to be, because it'd be living space in an accessory building. But they decided to change the plans and they made it an addition to the residence instead. I'm not sure the reasons why, but that's what they wanted to go with, just for, I don't know if it's cost or ease of use of the property, but they changed where they wanted it to be located.
There was something ensures that it'll be used for an affordable, therefore
You can make it a condition.
allowing a kitchen to be put in it.
Yeah, that's a,
In other words, we're not going to find out in the future it's being used for Airbnbs or something like that.
well, I mean, if you make it a condition that it has to be an affordable accessory apartment, they would then, need to register with the town as such.
Oh, then we can
I
do
mean, they will when they construct it, if that's the purpose of constructing it with a kitchen. The building department's going to go through that process anyways.
Okay.
Oh,
So somebody will look at that,
Yes,
for sure.
yes.
Okay.
Okay.
okay,
I'm fine with making it a condition.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're calling it that.
So I'm going to make a motion then for Catherine and Asario Perinas Jr. at 33 Springy Banks Road, East Hampton, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-119-2-8, to allow the application to proceed administratively with the condition that the affordable accessory apartment being added is strictly for affordable housing.
I'll second it.
Concur.
Concur. Sure.
Of course.
Okay, next we have 316 OMH LLC at 316 Old Montauk Highway and LLC, Montauk, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-88-1-26.2, and that's to construct a 1,404 square foot two-story addition with basement, window wells, and egress, and an upgraded sanitary system on a parcel of land containing bluffs and beaches.
Okay, so the board approved this project a few years ago. This is what the board approved. They then came back in at a later date and asked for a second story above this. There was also some other significant changes. They wanted to do that as a modification. We felt at the time, and the board agreed, that it was a bit too much as a modification and that should be a new application. So what they're coming in for now is this, which is very close to the original footprint. It's slightly different. It's 1 foot skinnier, but 6 feet longer towards the back of the house. So roughly the same footprint. And they are also adding a second story to this. So the GFA of the first story is roughly the same. The second, so it's 795 square foot first floor with a 609 square foot second floor now. That's the new addition to this. Everything else remains the same. The upgraded sanitary system remains the same. There's no other changes other than adding a second story and the footprint being slightly different than what was there. So we're comfortable with it moving forward as administrative review because the impacts are essentially the same. There's, adding a second story doesn't really change the impact to the bluff on this one. So yeah, that's why we're bringing it to you.
And it'll have all the construction protocols.
Yeah, we're going to include everything that was included in the last one with this one as well.
And the second story is not going to adversely affect the neighbor?
No, it meets pyramid and everything. That's 42 feet away from the side yard, so it's a pretty fair distance.
Mhm.
And the septic can accommodate the second story too?
Yeah. It's under max GFA by like 1,000 square feet. It meets all the dimensional requirements.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah,
Him too.
okay.
Okay. Terry?
Yeah, I don't have it on I guess I printed my, that one. For 316 Old Montauk Highway LLC at 316 Old Montauk Highway, Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-088-01-26.2. Make a motion to allow this project to proceed administratively.
Second.
Okay,
I
I
concur.
concur.
I concur as well. Thank you. Next, we move on to post-hearing decisions. We first have Matthew Gazowski at 12 Gainsborough Court in Montauk, Suffolk Tax Map Number 300-19-4-23. The size and location is 20,515.55 square feet at 12 Gainsborough Court, Montauk Beach Development Court, central portion of Westlake Residential Section, Subdivision 7, Block 159, Lot 14, map number 1017 in Montauk. The description is to construct a new 2,433 square foot, two-story residence with 72 square foot porch, 70 square feet of balcony, 645 square feet of roof deck, 644 square feet of patios, 365 square foot swimming pool, new sanitary system, and 14,550 square foot of clearing within setbacks and jurisdiction of freshwater wetlands, within front yard lines, lot line setbacks, and outside of the town's pyramid regulations. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the East Hampton Town, and 4 variances are required for this application. One variance of 19.1 feet is required from 255-430 of the Town Code to construct the proposed sanitary system 130.9 feet from freshwater wetlands, where 150 foot setback is required. One variance of 9.2 feet from 255-1110 of the Town Code is required to construct a front porch 10.8 feet from the front yard lot line, where 20-foot setback is required. 2 variances of 7 foot 5 inches and 1 foot 11 inches from 255-1172D of the Town Code are required to construct the residence out of the town's pyramid regulations along the northern and western lot lines, respectively, and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is B residence, Zone X, flood zone, and the secret class is type 2. And this was, Terry, you want to go?
Okay, this hearing was held back on December 6th, 2022. And it's a very interesting project, which I struggle with right till this moment. There was a large discussion about drainage, flooding. We had a submission from the agent on December 6th. We had the hearing. There were a number of issues brought up by neighbors. There were the number of the Rudolphs and Micheline Pilati, and there was a Jameson McWilliams representing the neighbor to the, here we go, I'll say the right side of the applications, the lot. So there was a lot of discussion. I won't to the details of that now, but so they requested more time to review and consider everything that was brought up at the hearing. And the applicant, back on this January 19th, we received an update from Land Planning Services. Lori Wilshire was the agent for this, with some updates that they made to address items in both the TAM and in the testimony that was heard at the hearing. So what they ultimately eliminated was with the redesign of the house, they made it slightly smaller in order to address an issue that had come up about the front porch. And with making the front porch 4 by 4 foot, it made it exempt from setback requirements, which it was not meeting prior at the original hearing. So that eliminated the variance for that. They also made some changes, slightly tightening up the house a bit, which also allowed them to eliminate the pyramid variances that were necessary on both sides of the house. The sanitary system does remain as being 130.9 feet from the freshwater wetlands, where 159 is required. And I guess that's it. So I'm struggling with this one. This is a very very constrained lot. And as you know, it's all kind of looks like a wedge of cheese to me, but it angles in on the Gainsborough Court side, and the wetlands are in the south, is that northwest? The western side, I guess. Tyler, keep me honest on that one. The west,
Northeast.
northeast, I'm sorry, northeastern side. This house is placed within a very tight building envelope that exists, but the entire property is within NRSP jurisdiction. And the house was designed to go, as you can see, it kind of curves around, and it's very close to the street front, which I do find a little disconcerting. However, it ended up being like this because, as presented, the wetlands, this was the best location for the house where they could basically put a house here and not be impacting to the wetlands. This property also is an integral portion of many properties around here, and some town-owned properties where there were culverts and underground culverts to take the stormwater and drainage and runs it under some other culverts underground through Gloucester Avenue, which is in the back of this property, the next street over, and ultimately all that goes into Lake Montauk. So it's a very sensitive as far as flooding and groundwater and runoff. They are offering, well, originally also on the first application, there was, in the TAM, it was recommended that they move the pool closer to the house from where it was. It was pretty much over on almost near the adjacent house initially. So they moved that over, and they moved it closer to the house, which is an improvement. They are also offering a 50-foot scenic easement and a 75-foot buffer. Now, one thing I don't see on the latest survey, they sent us an updated survey, which was revised on January 9th, 2023, which we received on the 19th of 2023. And what I'm not seeing on that, though, is where that 75-foot buffer goes. I don't know if Tyler can show that. You had said they offered a 75-foot buffer, but I don't see that on the survey.
That's just the edge of clearing, which is
from that edge of clearing
edge of
to
clearing.
the scenic easement?
The scenic easement's 50 feet.
50 feet, right.
Yes, which is here. And then their edge of clearing is up here, which is 80 feet now.
So the buffer would be the edge of
So
clearing?
it's 80
Yeah,
feet now?
yeah, that buffer would be the edge of clearing, right?
Feet. So all of that sounds very good. However, I'm having a problem with, they also added in response to Jameson McWilliams' testimony about the drainage and the runoff from the pool, from the house and the project overall. They added a number of dry wells between the pool and the street, and also near the sanitary system and by the parking area, where the parking area is proposed. The house itself is a modular house that they're proposing, and it's 2,443 square feet. And it's a 4-bedroom house. It's not an outrageously large size house. What I do find a little disturbing is not the style of it, but the fact that it is so close to the road. And if you go up Gainsborough Court, the other houses are all set back off the road itself. So struggled quite a bit on whether this is in the character of the neighborhood over there. But I think ultimately I'm going to approve this project because I think they did take into account everything that was referenced in the TAM and suggested in the TAM. And I think with the dry wells and all the drainage things that they have proposed, the scenic easement, the additional buffer up to the clearing line. And so I think I'm leaning toward approving this. I do think it meets the NRSP standards. It's just a very unusual lot. And, but they are entitled, they do have a building permit, so they aren't entitled to have a house put on this property. So, but I would like to hear what my fellow board members think on this one. This was a struggle.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with fellow board member Berger. This is a difficult decision. I think that, as was stated by Member Berger, it's an environmentally sensitive site. You described well what it's about, and that the fact that there's a good deal of water that gets shunted from the general area and comes down in. There was a discussion by neighbors being concerned that the addition of this house would cause water additional or aggravate the already problematic water situation that occurs in the streets after rains. And we had testimony, as you pointed out, from neighbors pointing that out. I'm not sure that the building of this house is actually going to exacerbate those problems. I think the fact that they did the additional dry wells is a help. I'm not sure that I would exactly blame this house for any additional water there, because I think that this is a problem that's endemic. And it was even pointed out by one of the speakers, locals, that they have a number of drainage ditches running through their yards. And this whole area, as we know in Montauk, which is, that all kind of basically drains down into the lake, is wet in many places. I thought that initially, and it was pointed out, a couple of things were pointed out by Member Berger, but I thought initially there was a little too much sprawl in the house. I think the pool being so far away was a real problem. I didn't know that this house could even afford to have a pool, and I'm still of that opinion. I think that there is a problem. There's a right of the owner to build on any parcel, and that one should be guaranteed, and I think it is. But I do think when you have a lot that's this constrained, you inherit some of the conditions that come with it. And one of those would be that there's only a certain size house you can build, and there's only a certain amount of space you can use. We discuss that regularly at these meetings, and I think that that's something that becomes really very clear on a parcel like this, that there is very, very little space. As was pointed out by Member Berger, they moved the house as in a very tight envelope that would be allowed to be built in, which puts it unfortunately very close to the road. And that enters into some of my thinking here. The house itself architecturally, which we're not here to review, but the house itself, I feel, is not in character with the neighborhood, and that presents a problem when deciding whether or not I think it belongs on this particular site. I think the roof deck associated with the house will even give you a feeling it's towering even higher than it is, because obviously there'll be activity there, and that activity will affect neighbors and the surrounding area. I think the site calls for a smaller, more traditionally designed home. I think that coming down this road in Gainsborough, and it has a certain feel to it and a certain type of house, and they were all built primarily around that same time. None of them are historic homes. They don't go back 100 years, but they have been done in a more traditional fashion. As was pointed out by Member Berger, most of them sit further from the road, but we can't blame this applicant for that, because they really can't move any further back. We want them as far, we encourage them as far as they can from wetlands and any area of distress that we're concerned about. And there was the issue of parking here that was brought up by Jameson McWilliams and others. That was something to consider. But while I struggled with this, I went back to the code and asked myself a couple of questions. Under 255-5-51D, 1 and 2, 1, were alternate uses of the property, do they exist? And do alternate designs entailing a smaller structure, could they be achieved on this spot? And in both of those, I think the answer was yes. There was not necessarily an alternate use, but I think the size of the house could certainly lead to us thinking that you could have an alternate perspective on how to move forward. I think the design, to me, is one that's going to be very strictly, to me, out of character with the neighborhood. Under 255-5-40D, that the current design is not compatible with the character of the neighborhood. I think that's very much the case in here. And under 255-4-20, because of the sprawl brought on by the inclusion and the spacing of the pool that was originally there that did not rise to the level of granting an RSP. I think that moving the pool back is definitely an improvement. I'm not sure that on a constrained site like this, we can afford to have a pool. I think we have to ask ourselves, when we have a parcel that is this difficult to design an acceptable structure on, what are the limits? For me, this did not rise to that level, and so I'm looking to deny this application. Joe?
Gosh. I agree with Terry's, Member Berger's comments. I think they responded to all the comments we made at the hearing. We didn't express, from what I recall, discomfort with the style of the house at the time. And we don't sit as an architectural board, although we are supposed to consider the character of the neighborhood. I think they did a good job in consolidating the plans and responding to the TAN, and responding to our comments. There's less clearing. They have 8,312 square feet of clearing where they're allowed almost double that. I think they've done a good job working within the constraints of the property, and they have a right to build. I don't think we gave them guidance as to being out of character with the neighborhood, so I'm inclined to approve it.
Thank you. Denise?
I think I actually agree with Member Berger and Member McGivern. They've eliminated all the variances except for the septic system. And I think the pool being moved closer to the house, which was suggested in the TAM, has reduced clearing. So they've kind of addressed that sprawling issue. They've revised the stoop in the house and scaled that back to eliminate the need for pyramid variances, which would be more in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. They did take into consideration the neighbor concerns about flooding by adding dry wells for the house. They're offering a 50-foot scenic easement and a 75-foot buffer. The clearing has actually been further reduced from 9,808 square feet to 8,312 square feet, which I think is pretty significant. I agree. I think that the applicants have made an effort to work within the confines of the concerns they were given at the public hearing, and they came back and sort of have addressed all of those. I am going to approve this application. I think they meet the NRSP standards.
Thank you. I too will agree with my fellow board members in approving the application. I don't have much to add. I do think they pulled back enough to get rid of the variances and have offered up enough mitigation. So that's.
I have some questions before we move on. One for council. Well, I also want to add, as far as letters that we got, we did get a letter from Laura Tuman of CCOM also about the fact that that's so integral to the drainage system there. But I think Ms. McWilliams did state that this was a property, I think, that was approached at one time for CPF. And I don't know what happened with that, but obviously that didn't get done. But in Jameson's letter on January 31st, in response to the changes that we got from the applicant, she makes a statement that because the concerns of inadequate drainage and changes to the historic stormwater runoff pattern, this application must be forwarded to the town's engineer. Is that something that must be done? Give me the legal on that one.
So No, we can do a courtesy forward and they can do their own research and they can take a look at it. If we wanted to take a look at the town issues, if there's flooding in the area, however, the ZBA board's not required. And also, when reading that letter, you need to give weight of if there is an expert in that area that would address the flooding issues, or was it just legal, advice on flooding issues? So there's a little bit of weight that needs to be given to each letter that's given. But, we can always, as a courtesy, forward it along if we would like to, and to any town department and have them take a look at the area out there if the board wants to.
I mean, we did get updated diagrams, and I think that was from the engineer, updated OWTS site plan revision, and all of which we received, I think, on January 19th
From the applicant,
from the
right? Yeah.
applicant, and also a proposed stormwater drainage plan.
Right.
So, okay, the other thing, the engineer should also address whether the installation of drainage on the road should be required. Now, I don't see this applicant being responsible for that, but is that something that also should be looked at? It absolutely floods. I've been over there a couple of times after rain.
Yeah.
And now without a house, there's water on the street.
It has floated around our office a little bit, the issue over there, and I don't believe it's the applicant's issue of the
Oh.
town road. So it is something that I think the town needs to take a look at, and, either, if you want, we could talk afterwards and I can shoot an email or something like that, just to give a heads up and see if somebody can go over there and see if there's anything the town could do, or if they've
Can we
been
do
looking
that?
at it.
It would be nice for that whole neighborhood to.
Yeah,
look
yeah,
at.
we can definitely, forward something on.
Okay. We good?
Yeah.
Next, we have Mohammed Grima at 425 Cranberry Hole Road, Amagansett, Suffolk, tax map number 300-128-1-32.1. The size and location is 54,325 square feet at 425 Cranberry Hole Road, Cherry Point, Lot 1, map number 11091 in Amagansett. The description is to construct a 3,463 square foot total two-story residence, 1,008 square foot of first floor decking, covered decking, and entry, 1,316 square foot of second floor decking and covered decking, a 416 square foot of roof deck, a 564 square foot swimming pool, walkways, driveway, and sanitary system on a parcel of land containing beach vegetation, dunes, and tidal wetlands. Relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to section 255-420 of the East Hampton Town Code and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is A residence, AE flood zone, elevation 10, and the seeker class is type 2. And I believe this is a
Yep.
member in McGivern's.
Yes, the hearing was held on December 20th, when the record applicant was represented by East End Land Planning, Katie Ozeki, and John Tarbett also appeared for the applicant. The survey we were working off is dated May 4th, 2022 by Saskis Surveying, and the building plans were by Will Minier, architect, which we received on May 10th, 2022. And the IA on-site waste treatment plans were received June 13th, 2022. The applicant is a recent purchaser. So on the one hand, he purchased the property knowing that it was severely constrained. On the other hand, the applicant was before the board in late 21, early 22, and received a denial for similar resident and associated structures. I skipped over, for the sake of time, I'm just going to refer to the TAM. The area that this property is in is a sort of unique area along Cranberry Hole Road. And Napeague Bay, it's a New York State significant habitat. It's in the Peconic Estuary Critical Environmental Area. It's wholly located within a scenic area of statewide significance. For council's sake, this is all summarized in the TAM. It's also located in a coastal erosion overlay zone, so it is a constrained property ecologically. The TAM at page 2 summarizes the various ways that they reduced the decking, the size of the swimming pool, and so forth. I think the decreases are not insignificant. On the whole, I agree with the TAM suggestion that perhaps they could build closer to the road, even if it required some variances. Right now, it's 25 feet from the street. On the other hand, they're only proposing to develop 10% of the property, which in the scheme of things is not a lot. Although the size of the project still makes me somewhat uncomfortable. I'm inclined to approve it, but I'd like to hear from everyone else.
Thank you. Ed, how about you?
Okay. Thank you, Joan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To begin with, this application is similar to an earlier one that was denied by the board, as was mentioned by Member McGivern, but there are some differences here. Begin with on this site, it's an extremely sensitive site. During the hearing, both hearings, but more recently, I think the chair spent some time describing just how pristine and how important the dune structure was here and the general ecology of the area. I think that the rapid erosion rates in this area and the preservation of dune ecology were major concerns for us in our discussion of whether or not we could move forward with this application. I think all of us on the board, and I can certainly speak for myself, would have preferred to see this site preserved in some way, as was the site immediately to the east, which now has the pole that houses the Osprey platform, just because many of us have watched what's happened to Cranberry Hole Road, and a lot of this native vegetation has been systematically chewed up and has disappeared. On the other hand, in terms of what was done in this application, the first application come in and was voted down by the board because we felt that it was too large a project. We felt that there were ways in which could be tightened up. This new application, the house has been reduced by almost 500 square feet of living space. The pool has been reduced by 312 square feet. As was mentioned by Member McGivern, it's a lot that's 54,000 square feet, although some of that is now underwater due to erosion. And against that number, as was mentioned, only 10% is to be developed. There is also a 34,000 square foot easement in place on the property. The pool has been placed in a location at the current proposal. The pool has been placed in a location 117.9 feet from the dune crest. Moving it further from the dune crest would bring it closer to the road, which is in itself another problem. John Talbert said at the hearing that it was not the job of the ZBA to consider the massing and architecture in our decision, but about that, I think he was wrong. Under 255-540, we are charged with considering the compatibility of proposed structure with its surrounding, and I'm quoting, with its surrounding and with the surroundings and with the character of the neighborhood. In terms of the neighborhood, it is important to consider the house immediately to the west, which is 425 Cranberry Hole Road, which is a house of more than 4,000 square feet. And other houses that line this portion of the road are all in proportion about that size. This house that's being proposed here at 425, therefore, in my mind, is not a larger home than others, and therefore is not out of character what is there immediately adjacent to it and up and down the road. The Osprey issue was raised, and it was pointed out by Member McGivern, was dealt with in their building protocol. And as long as there's consideration for not parking along the fence line, the margins lot where the Osprey's nest, and the performance of the majority of the heavy construction work is done out of season, I don't think that the nest poses a real problem on this site. It's a well-established nest that's been there for many years. We wouldn't want to see it disturbed, but I think that there's distance enough here, and if the protocols are followed, I would not consider that a problem. Lastly, I think we have to consider the applicant's right to build on a parcel. This new application represents, I think, an effort to respond to the comments and criticism raised in the earlier hearing. And I think that despite the fact that the house, if approved, will be closer to the road than I would like it to be, that its proposed location represents a compromise, moving it further from the dune, reducing its footprint, and keeping it as far back from the roadside as practicable. I think that enters into my final consideration, and that is what kind of presence will this house present if it was to move any closer to the road? While it was mentioned in the TAM that there is still an opportunity to get it further from the dune crest, I consider this to be a viable and a good compromise. I wouldn't want to see it any closer to the road, and I also don't want to see it necessarily move back any further towards the dune. So in considering the NRSP standards 255, 551D, 1 and 2, I think that a reasonable effort has been made to preserve and protect the site's natural resources, and that this design and placement of the proposed structure does rise to the level where I consider it worthy of receiving an NRSP. I'm willing to now, at this point, approve of this application.
Okay, thank you. Denise?
Oh, thank you. I don't feel that much has changed since the last denial. And what has changed, I don't feel is enough to meet the NRSP standards. There are valuable alternatives that have not really been explored. This particular area of shoreline has ongoing significant erosion. I think the original denial reasons are pretty much the same for this project as far as I'm concerned. An alternative to reducing the size of the structure and relocating the proposed residence and observe a larger setback to the dune crest is an alternative, particularly in light of the other vulnerabilities in this area. The erosion in the area continues to be both chronic and episodic. The area is battered with seasonal storms that increase in both intensity and frequency due to the climate change. The house that was referenced to the west that was approved, I believe in 2001.
Yes.
Okay. Is really not a fair, John Tarbett during his presentation used that as an, example of what's going on in that area, but we all know, or I think, if that house and pool were before us today, in light of what's happened in the area, I don't think it would be approved. And I think at this point that pool is like about 68 feet from the wetland. I think for myself, I would refer to the previous denial and incorporate the reasons for denial. I think the mass and scale of this project is still too much for the site. There's never been any consideration given to not having a pool. I think that this proposed use is not in harmony with and promotes the general purposes of the town zoning law. I think that the area is insufficient and inappropriate and inadequate for the proposed use. I think that the proposed use is not fairly typical of other parcels in this neighborhood and prevents the orderly and reasonable use of adjacent properties. I think that the site, and these are all conditions or reasons we denied in the previous that I just feel should be incorporated into this. The site of the proposed use is not suitable for the location of such a use in the town. For these reasons, I do not think this meets the standard for a natural resource special permit. The pool has really only been improved by 2.7 feet from a dune crest. And I know that changes have been made and there's been a little effort, but I just feel it falls short of being enough to meet the NRSP standards. So for those reasons, I'm denying the application.
Thank you. Terry?
Okay, what's been said. I basically think also compared to the denial that was done, whenever that was done, that they did make some reductions and move a little bit back so they get that 2 additional feet, I believe, from the not the bluff, yeah, I guess the bluff and the beach. However, I too think that the reductions in this application were not substantial enough for me to feel differently than I felt on the first application. I was one of the deniers on that one. And I too feel that, you know, the house itself and the interior, the very sprawling design has huge rooms. And I think it does not meet 255 for 12, alternative locations. There was an alternative location suggested, moving it closer to the road. However, I think a better one would be to make this even tighter. I too think that the pool could be eliminated from this project, and I think some of the house itself can be more compacted and reductions made to that, which would still allow for a very nice property and house at that location. What's the code? Is it 255-412 with smaller structures? Item 2. I believe that should still be done to improve this project, and I think it does not meet the NRSP standards. So I too am going to deny this application.
So, can I ask you a question? On the reasonings for no pool size and stuff like that, it sounded like more of a aesthetic viewpoint. Is there an NRSP
not
standard? Or
aesthetic.
this is
No,
based on, that's why I'm
it's based
clarifying.
on,
I want to clarify.
Protection of the natural resources, the
Absolutely.
vegetation, and
Okay.
yes.
Environmental protection, the natural characteristics of the site are such that the
Yeah.
proposed use may be interested there
Those are
without
lost,
undue
yeah.
disturbance or disruption of natural features, systems, or processes, and without significant negative impact to groundwater and surface waters on the site. That's from 255-540.
And 255-412, number 2, alternative designs entailing smaller buildings or structures, reduced yard or other setbacks, or diminished or reconfigured areas of use that determined not to be effective.
And I think
I think they could be
255-551,
effective.
yes, addresses alternative reasonable uses of the property or determined not to exist. Well, alternative reasonable uses of the property do exist. And D, preservation of natural resources. And yes, you referred to alternative designs entailing smaller buildings. Is that the one you're
Mhm.
referring to?
Yeah.
Yes, that's pertinent too.
Okay, thank you. So I'm in the, so let me, I'm deciding, let me just see how I look at this. I look at, as you know, I look at, I think Cranberry Hole Road is one of the areas in this town similar to Gerard Drive, similar to the dunes of Napeague, which brought the town into creating the natural resources special permit standards to begin with, to preserve that vista, to preserve the dunes. And I think this board does a good job in analyzing that. We did a recent, which I brought up during the hearing, we had a recent hearing where we really dove into the grading of that property, so that we could see that the undulating dunes were being maintained on the property.
Right.
What we have in this application is we are, in a sense, forced to evaluate a property that in the last 20 years has lost a tremendous amount of coastline due to erosion. And we are left with what to look at on this dunescape that we're trying to preserve. And we're forced to now, because of the erosion on the property, is to look at this house within this dunescape. We brought up the question on the in the hearing about a grading plan, And what we got was a construction protocol. I do agree they address certain things, but the only statement is on the construction that the grading is not going to change. But we don't have anything from them really to give us a final grading plan. We have a planting plan, but I don't know if they really addressed that NRSP part of it. I also think the changes that they brought forward were de minimis changes. I don't think they're significant. I am saddened by having to want to deny it because ultimately this owner, well, I will also say it's a new owner of property. The conditions of the property are known at that point, but I am too in the camp of denying this application because I think this application did not take seriously enough the zoning board's decision to begin with, and did not pull back the project adequately to protect its natural resources that it's forced to look at, and we're forced to look at because of this erratic coastline.
Would you want it closer to the street and allow variances?
Well, when we were
That's not
talking
the
about
norm.
closer to the street, I
You know,
guess we talked about it being on the private road part of it, the dirt road, that it wouldn't really bring it into vista on the thing. But I'm also concerned about the size of the property as it is, because we're forced with this thing that's bringing it forth when we're trying to, and like you said, we're in a sauce, we're in a very environmental area, so we have to look at this as it relates to the vista itself. And I think we're forced to have to look at this and say, I don't think it meets the standards based on the conditions of the property itself.
Was it ever on the CPF list? You know,
I don't know.
I don't know.
but I
There
don't know
was
if that.
one member of the
I don't know if
public
that's
that
relevant.
called in,
It's
Jane
relevant to us.
Mearing,
It's not in our purview to.
yeah, no,
talked
I
about the
know.
CARP plan, and I
That's
don't
what
know
I'm
where
struggling with.
this
I,
property fits
you
I
in.
know. But I do agree with you that very little effort was made after reading our decision and trying to meet the concerns that we had so that we could put forward an approval. But based on you saying the de minimis changes, they really still don't meet the standard for an NRSP, in my view.
Council, do you have any questions for
So the
us?
only thing that's pondering in my mind is the board has approved certain structures and not approved other structures. You know, if you denied the pool, would that change your opinion on whether or not
That's a very good point to
they
bring
meet
up.
the standard?
It is a good point.
That's a very good point.
I don't know if that's enough. I'd have to look at the house again, because I remember it being very large interior design, great room, like 55 or 60 feet. And
Whether it has a
think
great
some of
room or
these-
not is not what
No,
we're-
I
is not
know,
part of what we can. I think it's beyond our
it's
purview.
not what the rooms are, but the overall scale of that and size of that, plus the pool, I think the whole thing could be consolidated. Possibly they could have a pool, a smaller pool. But I don't
I
think
just
the
think that
changes
there
were
haven't- yeah,
enough from
enough
the last
alternatives.
decision that we had.
I agree, Joey.
What's your thought?
I tortured with this. I mean, they're only developing 10% of the property, and that was kind of a sticking point for me. I think
agree.
they could have a smaller structure. They could have no pool, but they do have a right to build. The question is, what would satisfy the board? I mean, how much smaller does the house have to get?
But that's really, I mean, I understand that question, But we're not in the business of designing projects.
Right.
I'm
No, I-
assuming that when an agent comes before us for the second time, that they're aware of what we were denying before and come before us with a better project. And clearly, this is not a better project. And having 10% of the property, that shows you how constrained this property is.
Mhm.
I mean, that's really one of the reasons it's such a delicate matter, because the property is highly constrained.
Well, I agree with all the concerns about the ecology of the area. And I think that preserving dune land here is absolutely essential for us. And I think that this parcel, no, none of us want to see a house built of any kind. It would have been nice if it would have been purchased with either CPF funds or in some other way had been preserved, but it hasn't been. So what's in front of us is an application where somebody has come with the second time. They've decreased it by, as the majority of the board seems to think, not enough to make it, qualify for an NRSP. From my point of view, I asked myself the question that was just mentioned, asked by Member McGovern: at what point would this board be willing to accept what was coming here? Because in my gut, there's nothing I want to see there. But at what point do I have to then stop and respect the rights of the owner here to build a house and to move forward with it? Now, it's been stated pretty succinctly by the majority of the board that it's still too big a project in your mind. It's still got too many things, aspects of it. I do think that in my mind, again, there was the idea that we do have the scenic easements going to be in place, and that I could envision with the proper building protocols that the majority of this property will be left undisturbed, and that would be a plus. I'm not sure if it was to come back for a third or fourth application that a lot of these same arguments still wouldn't apply. I think you could bring it down to 2,900 square feet, and you might still be saying, well, wait a minute, it's a pristine, important piece of property. So I looked at it and thought, and this is, I'm just telling you why I got to my justification, was that they've come back, they've made some changes. I'm not crazy about this house going in this spot. I'm not crazy about what it's going to look like from the road. And I think it might be too large. I also understand the nature of the property and the desire of the client, what you'd want to do there. I reached a decision that I was willing to accept it. I respect their decision on the part of the other board members saying it didn't quite come up to that level.
I mean, I'm literally, I am on the fence on it too. It is tough for me. Um,
But I do think the discussion tonight was good, because indirectly, we are giving direction to the agent or applicant about what would be acceptable. We've had discussions about no pool. We've had discussions about reducing the size of the house. We've had discussions about, relocating the house. I don't think we should get into the business of designing projects. I'm not comfortable doing that at all. And I personally don't have a problem seeing a house on that site. I think the person has an absolute right to build, but I think they also have a right to build it in compliance with the NRSP standards.
Yeah. I'm comfortable with the actions of the board on this. I mean, I have an opinion and it's at variance with the majority, but I understand where people are coming from. So I think it was a good exercise, as was pointed out by.
I think so too. So we good?
Yep. Are we okay?
Yeah.
Thank you. Next, we have Christian Sharma at 39 Benson Drive in Montauk, Suffolk, tax map number 300-30-1-10. The size and location is 9,150 square feet at 30 Benson Drive, Oceanside at Montauk, lot number 154, and lot 153, map number 2730 in Montauk. The description is to construct 511 square foot of first and second story additions, an outdoor shower, make interior alterations to an existing residence, construct new roof, install new windows and doors, new driveway, and upgrade the existing sanitary system on a parcel of land within jurisdiction of setbacks and freshwater wetlands. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the East Hampton Town Code. And 3 variances are required for the application. Variances of 43.9 feet, 35.7 feet, and 48.7 feet are required from 255-430 of the Town Code to construct additions 56.1 feet, outdoor shower 64.3 feet, and new roof line 51.3 feet for freshwater wetlands where 100-foot setbacks are required and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is B residence zone X flood zone, and the secret class is type 2. And whose was?
That's me.
Yes. Okay, go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This hearing for this application was on January 10th, 2023. We were working from a survey issued on, or printed on submitted on March 25th, 2021. Lori Wilshire represented the applicant. The applicant is requesting in this case permission to build a kitchen extension, a second floor addition, an outside shower, and changes to both interior and exterior of the house, as was just described and then into the record by the chairman. Parcel is in the Ditch Plains section of Montauk, which has a complex series of wetlands and waterways crisscrossing the entire development, and so careful preservation of this fragmented and fragile ecosystem is always a strong consideration on applications in this area. The existing residence is a modest one-story ranch-style house known locally as a leisure-rama. The proposed additions and improvements represent a significant expansion of the residence, bringing them to within 8 square feet of the 50% cap on additions to an existing structure. In asking for the approval of the proposed project, the applicant's representative offered the following improvements to the site. The renovated structure will have gutters and leaders that will discharge into dry wells. An IAOWTS sanitary system will be installed on the south side of the residence at the furthest point possible from the wetlands. A revegetated buffer will be installed at 40 feet from the edge of clearing to the north, providing additional protection for the wetlands in that area. A landscape berm will be created at the southwest property line to provide some protection for the neighboring property to the west and shunting rainwater away from that lower lying lot. Additionally, both the kitchen extension and the outside shower are proposed to be set over the previously disturbed and hardened surfaces. And in this case, we're talking about a concrete patio. And so we will not be adding any additional impervious surfaces to the parcel with the approval of this work. 2 letters were received from the public commenting on the project. One was answered by the offer by the applicant to create the vegetated buffer between the parcels. The second voiced 2 complaints. One, that the outside shower would be detrimental to the fragile wetlands to the north. I believe the inclusion of a dry well to catch the runoff created by the shower and the fact that the shower was not going to add additional impervious surface to the parcel mitigated that concern. The second was that the 163 square foot kitchen addition would also pose a threat to the wetlands. Again, I think that by building over an already hardened by the concrete patio, an area already hardened by the concrete patio, that the proposed work does not represent a significant danger to the fragile wetland environment. I think it was stated in this TAM that while we have to be extraordinarily careful of all the complicated infrastructure of wetlands that pass through this area and that eventually flow out of the area, that we have to I lost my place. That while we're doing that, we also have to recognize just what kind of additional strain are we putting on the environment by this work. In the TAM, it was admitted that there would not be a significant new impact to the wetlands by the additional roof space that was created by the project. I find that the project as a whole represents an improvement to the parcel environmentally and to the proposed work, although coming very close to maxing out the allowable amount of expansion for this dwelling, does not provide a reasonable threat to the environment. In reference to the variance standards 255-8-50, I find that this project will not represent an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood, but have an adverse effect on the environment. And that under NRSP standards 255-551D 1 and 2, and under 255-540, that similarly the project will present will not present an increased danger to the environment or create an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood. I think that in this particular case, when we look at the project as proposed, a redevelopment of the whole site, of course, would cause for a completely different perspective. I think that while this is a very sensitive site, building up in a way which is compatible in the neighborhood, in my mind, and building over an already hardened and disturbed area, and then adding the mitigations that were offered up in terms of the replanting in the back, the septic system, I think as a whole, this project is a positive. And so I'm willing to grant the NRSP and approve this application at this time.
Thank you, Ed. The next member from Montauk, Terry?
Um, Yeah, well, I agree with my fellow board member. I won't reiterate everything that he stated, but yeah, again, the benefits for it's a new IA system, which in this case, I think is a large improvement. It's an older house. The second story addition will be set toward the back of the house. Over the first story. And as stated, the kitchen will be over a stone patio, which exists already today. And the 40-foot buffer, I think, is a good positive protection of the wetlands that are up on the highway. And nothing really further. Then this house is almost, it's 8 feet from the maximum expansion. So not much else can happen on this house. So I do think, though, that this is a decent project. I think it'll help the applicant in their needs, and we do have the improvements of the septic and the buffer to improving this project.
Thank you. Denise?
Thank you. Yes, I agree with my fellow board members. I think the project as a whole is an improvement to the property. As it has already been stated, all the improvements are in already over existed cleared areas. The 40-foot vegetative buffer and scenic easement will mitigate wetland impacts, and along with a project limiting fence. I think that with a 40-foot buffer, scenic easement, dry wells, gutters and leaders, a revegetation plan before CFO and IA system, I think it's all a plus for this property. And I think it's actually will be in better shape than it is right now. So I do believe it is in compliance with the standards that need to be met, and I approve this application.
Thank you.
I'm going to be brief and not repeat everything. I'm inclined to approve the application and just note that because it's over an existing cement slab of 162.72 square feet. Lot coverage, total lot coverage and clearing are all the same. And you balance that against all the improvements they're offering. I think it's a good project, and I think the property will be better off for it.
Thank you. I agree with my fellow board members. I have nothing else to add. Next, we have Michael Martinson at 38 Chapel Lane in Spring, Suffolk, tax map number 300-103-7-8. Size and location is 16,800 square feet at 38 Chapel Lane in Barnes Landing, Section 1. Block 3, lots 65 to 68, map number 1935 in Springs. The description is to replace the existing front roof, front stoop, front stairs, and decking in place and in kind, construct a new 96 square foot rear deck, new basement door entryway, outdoor shower, remove an existing non-conforming 120 square foot shed, and construct a new 160 square foot shed, replace the existing second story windows in place, construct new fencing, and an upgraded sanitary system on a parcel of land containing freshwater wetlands. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the East Hampton Town, and 6 variances are required for this application. 5 variances, 70.5 feet, 71 feet, 60.4 feet, 50.5 feet, and 44.6 feet are required from 255-430 of the Town Code to construct The basement entry, 28.5 feet, front stairs, 29 feet, rear decking, 39.6 feet, outdoor shower, 50.5 feet, and shed, 55.4 feet from freshwater wetlands where 100% setbacks are required. One variance is required from 255-430A of the town code to allow fencing to be constructed within wetlands where construction is, if prohibited, and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is B residence, the Zone X flood zone, and its secret class is type 2.
Yes. Give me 1 minute. Okay. This public hearing was held on January 10th, 2023. The survey we are working with was last revised 11/14. I'm sorry, 11/4/2021, dated received 11/15/2021. There wasn't, I was not present the night of this hearing, but I did conduct a field inspection and I submitted my photos into the record and they were presented at the public hearing. I have followed all the documentation and listened to the public hearing on LTV, so I'm able to participate tonight. The hearing was left open for an affidavit of service and posting issue. I think it was left open for 1 week so the applicant could fill out the paperwork properly. There were no callers. The parcel is located on the south side of Chapel Lane. The parcel directly to the east of the subject property is a town-owned preserve. The wetlands on this property are part of an extensive complex of hardwood, swamp, and marshes. And these wetlands also play a significant role in the storage of water, flood control, and the maintenance of water quality. The application before us includes changes and additions to a very, very constrained lot. Michael Martinson is simply appeared before the board on behalf of himself, and he's simply trying to make the property livable. After hardship for a couple of years in terms of his living accommodations, he now has bought this house and is trying to upgrade it for himself and his 3 children. He just wants to have a safe entry, not to worry about a fire at night. He's offering to upgrade the septic system. The work he is applying for is necessary in order to have a healthy, living, safe environment. He did sort of start doing improvements on his own, and a stop work order was issued. Innocently, he really was not aware that he needed to have a building permit. His goal really in this situation is to improve the property environmentally. So because I believe he received a stop work order when he tried to do the front stoop and stairs, and when the stop work order got issued, since then, he's been entering the house via a ladder. So I'm going to try to break this down as best I can. There's a lot going on. I really want to hear input from my fellow board members. So I think I'm going to start with what I would approve on the property and why. You have to bear in mind the existing house is very constrained. It's really located extremely close to freshwater wetlands. But here's what I would approve and the reasoning behind it. The existing front stoop and stairs on the east side of the property should be approved because he needs to have access to his house. The in-place, in-kind decking on the south side of the residence can be approved as well because it's already there. And he could literally get some outside space, and there really would be no additional disturbance to the land. To the rear of the property in the west, he wants to put a new basement door entry, which should also be approved because right now he is actually entering this basement by opening a trap door and going up and down stairs. So he literally has one way in and one way out, and that's not even a code, and extremely dangerous. So I do feel that that should be approved as well. Now, this is where it gets tricky. Because of the constraints on this property, and this is where I want to have some discussion with the board. I don't think anything should be expanded. I think the shed could be approved, and I'm willing to hear comments on this. I'm not locked in stone on this, but I'm thinking that the shed, which he wants to improve to be 160 square feet now, right now it's 120 square feet. I don't know if expanding anything on this property is good, but replacing in place in kind, I would be willing to discuss that. In terms of replacing the existing second-story windows, I really have no problem with that. I don't think the property is appropriate for the additional fencing, given the constraints of the property. And also locating the fencing within wetlands clearly does not meet the variance standards when there are other locations. There is a rear deck. Survey. That I feel should be denied because of the constraints on this property with regard to the wetlands. It's just not in keeping with the code to expand the structures on this site. And I would definitely say no to the outdoor shower. Like I said, this is a very constrained lot. There's a lot going on. But because of the close proximity, and also next to the shed that he wants to replace, which is definitely necessary. He needs a shed, but I'm not sure if 160 is okay. I'd like to know what my fellow board members feel. And I'm wondering if it shouldn't stay the same size, because directly next to it is where the septic system is going to go. So there's going to be a lot of disturbance in that area. So for the reasons I stated, I've outlined what I would approve and what would deny, and move on to my board members.
Thank you. Terry?
I'm trying to catch up with her.
I know. There's
Yeah,
a lot going on.
No, I'm listening to you. I think you said the deck replacing kind on the south side is what you're approving.
Yes, because
Okay.
it's already
I
there.
thought you meant the deck, the
One in
proposed
the
deck.
rear, I believe, if
the other
I
side.
could be
Yeah.
wrong, I think he wants, there's a little,
Well, 8 by
actually
12, the
see it.
proposed 8 by 12.
does he
On the
want to
survey?
enlarge that?
I don't know. This says proposed deck, and I don't know if it's there today, actually. 8 by 12 deck on the west side.
But that is the
guess
one
it
I
would
would
be the
deny,
west
only
side.
because, I already explained why.
I don't know. Actually,
I don't know.
when I was looking at this, I am in agreement, actually, probably just about with everything, not in agreement with you necessarily with everything, but looking to approve for the 5 variances. The one variance that I absolutely will not approve and I feel is inappropriate is the fencing in the wetlands. So I would be denying that. As far as the shed, now on the survey, it says it's an existing 8 by 10, and you want to replace with a 10 by 16. But the way the rest of the house is designed, and I believe there's no real full basement, if I remember right.
Yeah, that was the problem.
So he,
And he
is gonna
wanted to
need some
store his
storage
commercial,
space.
well, he
Yeah.
also
And
is
he
a
has-
commercial fisherman.
Right, the oyster.
And everything's
oyster
on the
equipment.
land now.
Mhm.
So I'm ready to approve all of them. They're large variances. I don't know what he can do about that, actually, because if you look at the survey, the wetland runs from the south of the house all the way up
Yeah.
toward the north
They're
and
right
around
there.
toward the west. So he only has this one, I'll call it a quarter. It's a little more than a quarter of the property that he can do anything with at all. And it does need work, and the work that he's proposing to do and has done, I think, will be an overall improvement for the entire property. And it's tough to meet all the NRSP standards with this, but he is offering the septic system, which will be a major improvement to that also, even though that will be close to the wetlands also. But it's very hard not to be close to the
Mhm.
wetlands on this entire property. So I'm looking to approve it all, except for the fencing.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Member Berger. I was on the fence about the new rear deck, but I think offering the IA system, particularly in this fragile area, will be a big improvement. The one thing I have a problem with is the fence, and mostly because he couldn't articulate why he wanted the fence placed where he wanted it. If they have a dog, they want to fence into the yard, it seems like they could fence it in closer.
Mhm.
But the property really will be greatly improved by what he's proposing to do. So,
Yeah, thank you. I think we all had immediate sympathy with the situation when we first heard about what it was, but we still have to consider the standards and the wetlands and what we're being asked to have come in front of us here. I'm not in disagreement that the two things that jump out at you about approval here is whether or not the shed is appropriate to be enlarged as close to the wetlands as it is, and whether or not there's a real need for this additional 95 square foot deck in the back. Relative to the fence, I do remember that Mr. Martin immediately said that if the fence is a problem, he would take it out of his request because he did not want to be put in a position of being denied over a fence that was not absolutely essential to him. At one point, we did ask Tyler, when he came up, would there be anything that would be more acceptable? And of course, he recommend exactly where a fence went, but he said certainly bringing it back out of the wetlands and bringing it back to the cleared area would have been a proposal. But we don't have that as a proposal in front of us. We just have a suggestion that might happen. So I think the fence is a problem for us, and Mr. Martinson will have to deal with that on another time, either coming in front of us or just accept our decision that we're not going to allow it, or at least that I don't want to allow it. The question about whether or not the septic system is adequate mitigation for the shed is one to go back and forth. I have great sympathy for him. Who doesn't need a shed? Who doesn't have things they have to store? And he's got a business, and we saw evidence of that in the photos, that the way in which he's now using his material, he's storing it on his land. Still, it's a greatly constrained lot. Now, he did explain to us how there was a lot he could afford, and that he bought it when others had turned their back on it because it was so constrained. Nonetheless, he still inherits those constraints and has to work within them. I'm going to lean towards everyone else's decision here and allow for the shed, even though I think that it's just barely a trade-off for the mitigation that has been offered up in case here. I think that the entry that for the basement, we all considered, or at least I did at the time, to be a safety issue. He did say that he had down there in this limited space, but he did have his utilities down there, which means if they had to be accessed in an emergency, he would have been in a tough spot. And I think that's something we have to look towards approving. And I think as far as the rest of it went there, and with his presentation, that just want to see if there's anything else. He had to go through the stop work order. He had to, as was mentioned, access his house through a ladder, and eventually did finish up something without approvals. And all that is something that could have happened to anyone. Unfortunately, it happened to him. And yeah, I guess that's about it. I'm in agreement with my fellow board members. I'm going to agree not to allow the fence, but to allow the other new improvements there. And so I'm willing to approve it on that basis.
Thank you. I agree with it. I think that if you look at this property, it is highly constrained. The last C of O was 1979. And I think the upgrades that he's proposing here are modest enough to approve. I think that he said he would clean up the site. If the shed allows him to do that, I think it helps. I'd rather have things tucked away in the shed than out affecting wetlands and stuff like that. So I think it makes sense, and I think it's modest enough. I would approve it.
I'd like to add,
Without the fence, yes.
I do appreciate the comments made here, and I will agree with my fellow board members and just deny the fencing as well.
Thank you.
The shed was the smallest variance.
I know, and it's necessary. It's just such a constrained lot, it really is.
Pretty much.
Oh, yeah.
Next, we have Chris Robbins at 257 Fairview Avenue in Montauk, Suffolk, tax map number 300-19-7-4.19. The size and location is 18,089.94 square feet at 257 Fairview Avenue in Montauk Beach Development Core Map number 1017 in Montauk. The description is to construct a 720 square foot swimming pool, 160 square foot pool patio, 20 square foot of pool equipment, and to relocate and upgrade a sanitary system with 150 feet of freshwater wetlands. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of East Hampton Town Code. And any other relief necessary, the zoning district is B residence zone X flood zone, and the secret class is type 2. Was this? Sarah?
This was me. Okay, this hearing was on January 10th of 2023. Chris Robbins, the agent was Edward Batcheller. At the time of the hearing, this latest survey that we had was received March 4th, 2022, revised February 1st, 2022. Now, at that hearing, the applicant is, they're not really offering an OWTS system. The septic system they're proposing is an upgrade to an OWTS. Now, there were a number of anomalies on the surveys. The first being that it did not indicate or show where the OWTS system was going. They had it on the survey looking like a standard septic system. The current septic is basically in the area of where they want to put the pool and just north of that on the survey. So it is not mitigation for the project. It is a necessity based on the fact that that's where they want to put the pool. So we'll be putting in an OWTS system along that. I guess that's the northern, Tyler? In the right direction, western. Yeah,
From what?
yeah.
The sanitary will be?
The sanitary.
Yeah,
That's
northwest
west,
of the
right?
house.
West, northwest, okay. I'm getting confused with the other house there. Now, there were a number of issues that I have with this project. There was also, when it went to do the field inspection, a sauna that was still in a state of construction over on the western property line, very close to the property line. And it's not shown on the survey. And on the survey, basically on this survey dated February 1st, 2022, where it shows proposed pool equipment, there was actually an outdoor shower in that basic location at the property. So there was a lot of discussion about the incorrectness of some of the things on the survey, and there was also in the TAM an issue with the exact clearing that exists on the property. And going back, I'm going to go back one survey more on survey we received December 8, 2021. Revised 4/15/2021, it shows the area that was proposed for clearing back at that point in time for this project, and indicated that it would be over the clearing limits for this property. Yet on the survey that we received February 1st, 2022, the overclearing on the property seemed to have been eliminated. It was whether this was a miscalculation, but at the hearing, the agent was asked a number of times about the clearing discrepancy. And at the end of the hearing, we left the record open for both a corrected survey and a survey indicating what the applicant wanted to do with the sauna and the shower. The shower is not on the C of O that exists today. And what we received is another survey dated January 25th, 2023, received on February 7th, 2023. And on this, they indicated that the sauna was going to be removed, so that's fine. And then now the existing shower reappeared on this survey. And it reappeared basically in the area where the previous survey indicated that the pool equipment was going to go. And I can't find on the new survey where the pool equipment is proposed to go now. This all disturbs me. This is a natural resource special permit. There are, this house in the last 6 years has had several issues, all resolved, I guess, with the C of O that existed, that was issued back then. But I am reluctant to, the clearing is still an issue. There was no explanation given for it. And even the clearing line from the 2 surveys ago, it doesn't show on this. It shows maybe as a wire fence, actually, more so. But it just keeps changing, and I don't know that I can approve a project with this data and this information and without the clearing issue being resolved. No. Yeah, that's not an NRSP, is it an NRSP?
Can we ask council, can we just defer a decision until we get a survey that actually clearly delineates?
Or we can deny it.
Yeah, I think I'm ready to deny it. There's 2 more, we had about 5 surveys. I understand that'll change as a project gets developed. But these last 3, I mean, the clearing issue is still not resolved. Now they have this 4-foot wire fence. There was a pool fence indicated on the survey that we had at the hearing, which is now a 4-foot wire fence going around considerably more of the property and actually follows what looks like the clearing line from 2 surveys ago. But this whole thing disturbs me. These records are not right. And I can't approve this.
Okay.
We'll hear from Ed, maybe.
Yeah, I don't have a lot additional to that. I think it's the same concerns. We visited the site. It's a fairly straightforward proposal in terms of the pool itself. It's just the details around this thing were very confusing when we were there and continue to be confusing, as was pointed out by Member Berger. I do think that this conflict that happened with the pool equipment and the existing shower, that the existing shower at the hearing was suggested could be removed if that was going to be a problem, but it did not show up on the survey that came later on as having been removed. And that puts us in a position of not knowing where the pool equipment is going to go. Without knowing where the pool equipment is going to go, we don't know they might be placed someplace that not only wouldn't we allow it, but it might also be in some other violation. We just don't know how far away. They might put it next to a fence line. The property had this sauna that was sitting almost on the property line, a foot or 2 off of it. So it would have been a problem on its own had it continued to be there. We're told that it's been moved or to be eliminated. If it was to be placed somewhere else, we'd have to know where it was being placed. To be removed, yeah. And so what should have been, I think, it could have been a fairly straightforward application has turned into something that, because of the details, and the devil's always hiding there, we're not exactly sure what we'd be being asked to approve. So I'm in agreement with Member Berger here that without us having a clear definition in the survey of what has actually been, being agreed upon, I don't know how we can move forward. I can move forward and approve this. So I'm going to deny it and then agree with Member Berger on this.
Okay. Joe?
I agree with my fellow board members. I just listed questions, and I don't think we have a definitive survey to approve or even disapprove. If we're disapproving, we don't even know which survey we're disapproving. So I would vote to deny it, or alternatively leave it open for them to submit a definitive survey.
Okay. Terry? No, I mean Denise,
Oh, yes.
sorry.
Want to go again?
No, something that-
I agree. There's not much to add. I don't think this meets, the pool meets the needs for the NRSP standards. The wetlands associated with this property are part of a complex drainage system that could influence other wetlands in the area. The close to maxing out clearing, because the allowed clearing, I believe, is 14,522, and they're at 14,140 square feet. So I don't think this meets the standard for an NRSP, and for all the other reasons stated, I deny this application.
And the clearing, the existing clearing on this shows 14,500.
Yeah,
On
and
this
here
latest
is
survey.
522,
So
right,
it's almost at the maximum.
right.
Yeah.
It's almost maxed out in terms of clearing.
Thank you. I agree with all of you, and I have nothing else to add. So we have two more decisions. Let's have this discussion about it. I know Hope's got her hands full with what we've done. Do we want to proceed? We don't have to make these decisions this evening.
We have 2 weeks. 'Cause we have one next week.
No, we have, we have
off next week.
We
so-
have quite some time.
Yeah, we have off.
to do
Yeah,
this.
these are going into March, I think. these
Yeah,
We have till
But you have
March
time to
24th, so
write
we
them
even
up.
have
Well,
another
Del-
work session to do.
Delta is
I mean, you don't
pretty
have to do
simple.
Yeah,
it
this
next
one's pretty
week.
simple.
They're
Okay,
usually
so-
She's gonna
other
write it
than
up,
just CBA, right?
She doesn't have to write it up. She can write it up when she wants.
So if we think maybe
They're not gonna be on the
Deleva,
however you pronounce
Yeah,
it.
that's relatively.
so that might be a simple one, so should we get that out of the way? Or- You don't have to write, you
You
don't
have to write it, you don't have to write
Okay.
it now.
She had
You'll
to-
just
she said
have it.
We'll put off 33 Maple Street.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so I'll read in Dominic Deleva. 304 Shore Road in Amagansett. And the size and location is 1,998 square feet, 305 Shore Road in Amagansett, Suffolk tax map number 300-84-3-11. And the description is to allow an approximately 32 square foot roof deck extension, approximately 250 square feet of brick and patio to remain within side yard and rear yard line setbacks and beyond the allowable total lot coverage. The relief sought is 4 variances are required for this application. 1 variance of 7.3 feet is required from 255-1110 of the town code to allow the existing brick patio to remain 0.7 feet from the side yard lot line where 8-foot setback is required. 2 variances of 4.2 feet and 2.7 feet are required from 255-1110 of the town code. To allow the brick patio to remain 3.8 feet and roof decking to remain 5.3 feet from the rear yard lot line where 8-foot setbacks are required. 1 variance of 228 square feet is required from 255-1110 of the town code to allow the property to remain with a total lot coverage of 1,227 square feet, where 999 square feet is the maximum allowable and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is B residence zone, X flood zone, and the secret class is type 2. Member McGivern, I
Yeah.
think this is yours.
So this property is located at the sort of tail end of Shore Road in the Lazy Point area of Amagansett. It's not part of the trustees' property. I skipped ahead. The hearing was held on February 24th. They received 1 letter of support. Joe Halsey of Lighthouse Land Planning represented the applicant. The survey we were working off of is by George Walbridge Surveyors, last revised October 5th, 2021. The property is quite small. It's 50 feet wide by 40 feet deep. It's non-conforming to the degree that it receives the 4/10 rule and the 2/10 rule. I didn't know that there were 2 rules, but apparently they received the benefit of both of those rules because the property is one of the smallest in the area, being approximately 2,000 square feet. To skip ahead, The roof deck, Mr. Halsey explained, when it came time to construct it, they had to add supporting columns to the deck, so it was extended a little bit beyond where it had been approved by 8 inches, but it doesn't extend beyond the eave of the roof. I visited the property and you can see where they put the columns in, and it's almost as if, well, it's as Joel Halsey described it, they were building it and realized that they just didn't measure properly to support the deck. So I'm inclined to approve the roof deck. The brick patio, I was having some trouble with. Joel Halsey argued that it was, in his view, pre-existing and that variances weren't required because it was put in before the town counted a patio as a structure. I was at the property and it is brick and sand and it does look quite old. Whether it's been there over 20 years was unclear to me. I guess I had one concern that if they ripped out all the brick, would that be more disruptive to the property? Because to get from the front deck to the stairs to the second floor deck, you have to walk across the brick patio. So it's possible they could shrink the brick patio a little bit. But I'd like to talk to other board members about that.
Thank you, Ed.
So I'm good with the roof deck and I'm sitting on the fence on the brick patio.
Yeah, so it is this constrained, not constrained, but very small site, 50 by 40. I think it says here in the TAM that it's among the smallest properties in the entire town of East Hampton. I'm sure that it is. So there's very little you can do on the site without getting yourself into some sort of trouble. The argument that that the roof deck couldn't have been supported without going outside the building, of course, is not accurate. It could have been done, but other than just avoid a conversation of construction technique here, what they obviously chose to do is to go outside the building and come down. That in itself is a violation enough to deny it. However, because this 8-inch post that came down did not project out past
The eve of
the
the
eve
roof.
of the roof, it really didn't change lot coverage. So coming down and allowing a better support on this flimsy structure, while it made sense, was not strictly legal. And of course, that's one of the things we're here to talk about. The brick patio, many of us remember how brick and sand was extremely popular both through the 80s and into the 90s. And it was pointed out that it wasn't even noted on surveys, and it didn't call for building department approval. That's why so many went in, walkways went in that way, and patios went in that way. We asked that the night of the hearing, we wondered, was there any way we could find out that it pre-existed 2001 when it did show up as a shadow on an aerial photo? Had it gone back an additional 10 years, it would not be an issue because it would have predated regulation. We don't know that. We can suppose that it might, as was suggested by Mr. Halsey. I think that the comment that was made, remember, we're given that there would be, it serves now as a landing to the staircase, makes a certain amount of sense. That doesn't mean that it couldn't have been shrunk and brought back in. Given the size of the lot and given the slight request that this is, I'm in favor of approving it. I think I hope that when we look at these, we look at everyone individually, and this to me is a bit of a one-off, being such a small lot. And I think that the excess in terms of going outside the building with the support is not extreme. And I'm willing to provide a little tolerance for it in here. So I'm willing to approve the project.
Thank you. Terry?
Yeah, I agree with my fellow board members. I mean, part of the documentation that we received was some approvals that were done way back in 1992 by a board. The survey attached with that from July 2nd, 1992, doesn't really show the brick patio at all. The roof deck also, I have no problem with that. My concern with the brick patio is, I guess that's included in the 228 square feet that the lot is over the lot coverage, right? So, because of the state that it's in and the kind of, we're not really sure exactly when that came into existence. I too am looking to approve that. However, I wonder if we could put a condition on this decision, if it's approved, that if the brick patio ever needed replacement, that just be removed rather than be redone. Reluctant, I wouldn't want someone to come in and now ask to put something on top of this brick patio either, and add to the whole problem of this tiny property. But I would approve it at this time if we can condition that in the decision.
Okay, Denise?
So what you mean is if we allow the lot coverage,
The lot coverage.
that nothing else can be done
Should be
on this
done,
property?
not to be done
Yeah,
on this
I
property.
agree with that.
And
Yeah, I
if the brick
agree-
had
I
to be
agree with that.
redone,
That's what
maybe
you're
they could
saying.
just remove it, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That is a good idea.
Yeah.
Given the size of the lot, I think this is a unique situation, so I don't see any precedent here. I think the roof deck is slightly larger than what was already approved by the zoning board in 92. I don't have a problem with the roof deck and the brick and sand. I don't know, portion of it, reviewing aerial images, it does appear that at least a portion of the brick and sand had existed in the same or similar location since at least 2001, possibly earlier. And we all do know that at that time, this could be done without requiring any town permits. And I do agree with Member Berger that if we are going to allow the additional lot coverage, that nothing else be done on this property.
Nothing else should be done, or that,
I
Like
think
you
she said
can't-
it be removed, and I don't,
You mean if, that's why I wanted to be clear on what you meant. So
I
a
think I meant
portion,
both.
a pour.
What? Well, if the brick,
Like a po-
if, say, the brick patio, they wanted to replace it,
Right.
rather than allow the replacing, they could remove it and come into conformity on the lot coverage then. But also, I guess nothing else would be.
I don't
I guess nothing
know.
else could be.
Maybe
what I would suggest maybe is that if you want to condition it, you would just condition it on it remain a brick and sand patio,
Right.
that they
Yeah.
don't do a
Yes.
hardened set structure.
That it not
What do
be,
you mean?
that
I
it
don't-
remain a
Okay.
pervious
Okay,
structure.
Yeah, all right. Then we
Right.
could do that.
That's your usual intent.
That's
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay.
Thank you for articulating what we were trying to
remember
say.
I remember the days of Bill Gale and all those guys saying it was brick and sand. It didn't go on
I-
a survey.
Yeah, me
I
too.
absolutely remember those days.
Many of them.
Yeah. All right, I think that's it. We're gonna put off 33 Mako.
Oh, come on.
Roy, do you approve or deny?
I agree. I don't have anything to add.
Really want to put
We
the
have
other one on?
other decisions, and that's Camilla Lippy at 21 Bianco Road
Oh.
in East Hampton, Suffolk, tax map number 300-56-1-5. And that's to modify a 2020 determination in order to relocate and redesign the approved residence more landward on the property. It sounds like a good one to me.
So I'll bring up the approved survey first, just so you can see what you guys originally approved on this. This is over on Bianco Road, so it's over by like Sammy's Beach area. You approved this house fairly close to the coastal erosion line. It's easiest to sort of watch that to see how far it moves back. It's about 10 feet that they're proposing to move it back. You can see obviously a little bit more space between the Sea line there. They said that they were concerned about working within their clearing envelope, so they wanted to move the house back. The building is the same exact footprint. It's a slightly different design, but it doesn't need pyramid or anything like that to begin with. So we weren't too concerned about that. But we felt that essentially all they're doing is moving it slightly further back on the lot. Total lot coverage is going down slightly, I think probably because they're removing some of the driveway. And everything else is essentially remaining the same, other than moving it further back on the lot, further away from the bluff crest. So we felt that this was an appropriate modification request without going to a hearing, since essentially nothing was nothing was getting greater. It was actually moving further away.
I'll take it. Give us more of that.
Yes, I agree.
If it's okay, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion then in Camilla Lippe at 21 Bianco Road, East Hampton, Suffolk, tax map number 300-56-1-5, to allow the modification to proceed.
I'll second it.
Concur.
Concur.
I concur.
Next, we have Michael Frischberg at 4 Osborne Farm Lane in Amagansett, Suffolk, tax map number 300-197-8-11, and that's to allow a one-story addition to remain 14.2 feet from the side yard lot line setback where 15 feet is required.
Okay, so this one's Morgan's. I'm covering it for her. This property got an addition. They received building permits. The building permits showed this addition here meeting a 15-foot setback from the side yard lot line. Once it was constructed, it's 14.2 feet, which is slightly more than the building department will allow as like a grace amount. So we are here for a variance without a hearing to allow it to remain 14.2 feet where 15 feet is required. The 0.8-foot variance.
So it's merely a construction error?
Yeah.
And the building department has a 6-inch grace rule?
Right.
So we're 2 inches beyond the grace rule.
Just barely, yeah.
Thank you.
4
It
inches
meets,
off.
it still meets pyramid. They supplied plans that showed it still meets pyramid. So the only variance that they're requesting is that side yard.
And when did this show up in the C of O inspection?
I imagine, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know the specific details, but maybe when they actually got it surveyed. But the work's done.
Oh, it's Amagansett.
Anybody have a problem with it?
I'm okay with it proceeding. with
I'm
variance
okay
without
with it.
hearing.
In the matter of Michael Frischberg, 4 Osborne Farm Lane, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-197-08-11. I make a motion that we grant the variance without a hearing.
Second.
I'll concur.
I concur.
I concur as well. Next, we have draft minutes of February 7th, 2023.
No, we can table those till next week,
Sure.
or the next meeting.
Don't look at them.
Resolutions, we have Wickapog Realty 1 LLC at 391 East Lake Drive in Montauk, Suffolk, tax map number 300.
No, that one's,
Yeah.
we're gonna hold off on that one.
What's that?
I haven't written that one yet.
Okay.
Okay, so we're done.
I didn't see it.
All right, thank you. I think that concludes.
Make a
You can
motion
make
to
that.
close. I'd like to make a motion to close the February 14th, 2023 meeting of the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals at 9:02 PM.
Second.
Concur.
Concur.